Hello, and welcome to another edition of A Planet Among the Stars, our Avalon Rises astrology series. I am Dr. Jane, and today I'm excited because we are actually doing a little bit of a hybrid video today. It is an astrology transit that we will be talking about, but we are also really highlighting the sacred Sabbat of Litha, which is one of the 8 ancient Sabbats in the Northern Hemisphere. And this one is marking the summer solstice. And this is one of the quarterly Sabbats, so it also does coincide with an astrological transit, with the transit of the sun from the sign of Gemini into the sign of Cancer. The summer solstice is also an astronomical event, right? And marking the progress, and we would call it the turn of the wheel, marking part of the wheel's progress, the Earth's progress around the sun. And it, in the Northern Hemisphere, is also the longest day of the year. And Litha is, in particular, the energy in Litha is characterized by the peak of the solar energy in the Northern Hemisphere. And this is the peak of the divine masculine energy. This is the energy of life. It is the spark of life. It is force. It is an outward energy, and it is vitality. And on Litha, the divine masculine features prominently, usually in the form of either the green man or the oak king. And the celebrations around Litha are all very vibrant celebrations of life. In the natural world at this time in the Northern Hemisphere, growth is abundant, but we don't have a lot of fruits yet. So this is also kind of a time when there's a little bit of time to play. And so the energy of the divine masculine is also playful. And so this is coming through physical vitality, action, initiative, the ability to overcome obstacles and take action and initiative in our lives, and growth, abundant growth, as well as play and celebration. So Litha is this time when this energy is most potent in the year in the Northern Hemisphere, and it is most accessible to us. But it is also a wonderful time to celebrate this energy in our lives. You'll notice that even in the modern day, we kind of pick up on this, right? With the timing of Father's Day in the year, it falls very close to the summer solstice, to Litha. And in general, these are the powers of the sun, right? That life-giving light that comes in and fills the vessel, right? And in terms of how one can traditionally celebrate Litha, there are several traditions. Blue is the traditional color. Blue and gold are the traditional colors of Litha, as well as in terms of some herbs, St. John's wort, sunflowers. I love a Litha arrangement of blue hydrangea and sunflower together, as well as for sacred foods, honey is a huge aspect of Litha. It is golden, like the sun. You can make Litha honey infused with lavender is particularly traditional. We make our Litha honey with lavender as well as citrine in the jar, the stone citrine. This is also kind of getting back to that playful aspect. This is also a time of the year where it's very traditional to interact with the fae, with the fairies. And fairies are very playful. Fairy energy is beauty and joy and play and celebration. And, there are some people that give a lot of caution when working with fairies. It's important to be respectful, as it is always when working with any being. It is important to be respectful, human, plant, animal, or fairy. And what fairies love is they love gifts, and they love cream, and they love honey and little cakes. So this is a traditional time when offerings would be left for the fae as well. Another Litha tradition, which is a practice with caution tradition, is jumping over the Wishing Bonfire. So burning is traditional, bonfires are traditional at Litha. And if you are feeling brave or reckless, depending on how you want to frame it, it is an ancient tradition to leap over the bonfire while making a wish. And if you make it, then your wish will come true. So in this way, these are several traditions in which you can celebrate Litha. Now, one of the other aspects to Litha is that it is also a solar transit. So it's not just the peak of this solar divine masculine energy in the wheel of the year. It is also the transition of the sun from one sign to another, which is going to bring an energy shift with it. So for the last 30-ish days, the sun has been in the sign of Gemini. And Gemini is an air sign, and it is a very intellectual sign. It is ruled by Mercury, which is a very intellectual planet. And it is, as I mentioned in some previous posts, an inherently relational sign. But it's going to be relational in a very intellectual kind of way. And when the sun is in a particular sign, the sun's light is similar to the divine light, filters through all of the other aspects in the system. And so when the sun is in a particular sign, the light is shining through that sign, and then everything is going to take on a little bit of those tones. It's not like that's going to be the only influence, but it's going to be almost like the lens, like if you take a colored lens and place it over the light source. That's what we're doing when the sun moves into a new sign. We're changing the lens that's going over the light source. And in this case, we are changing into Cancer. And Cancer is a water sign. This is the first water sign in the astrological wheel of the year. And it is, water is a very different element than air. I probably shouldn't, that sounds like kind of an obvious statement, but whereas, air is the intellect, water is emotion and is feeling. And water is also a force of creation. It is one of the elements of creation. And in fact, on the summer solstice, we have the transition of the sun and the fire and the peak of this fire energy transiting into water. And if you know the alchemical symbols for fire and water, then when you join those symbols together, it is an alchemical union of creation, right? So that energy is also available to us at the Litha transit. But Cancer is also the sign of the mother. The ruling planet of Cancer is the moon. So Cancer is a very sensitive sign. And sensitive in terms of it has a high ability to feel. So whereas previously some of the lessons you may have been being handed, you were knowing with your mind, now you will have the opportunity to know them because you will feel them. And it's interesting because, in our culture, feeling's not really very popular. It's often very hard to actually be sensitive and to feel. And in fact, one of the shadow sides of Cancer is to withdraw from that feeling. The animal of Cancer is the crab. And if Cancer gets overwhelmed, it withdraws into its shell, right? And it's interesting because there's this common misconception that feeling is weak. But I can say from personal experience, and I'm sure many of you agree, it actually takes much more strength to feel and to allow yourself to feel without numbing, without withdrawing, without going into the mind to block the feeling, right? And so this season with the light filtering through Cancer is an opportunity for us to feel and to feel the lessons that we are being asked to learn by the other planets. Saturn is still retrograde, and next week we will have a very watery transit when Neptune goes retrograde on the Cancer new moon. So there will be a video. Don't stress, I will talk about that. We will actually also have a special meditation on that day that I will host. And that's all about intuition, right? Because the moon is the subconscious. and it is our feeling. So we have this juxtaposition of contrasts on Litha. We have the divine masculine energy, action, initiative, life force, vitality, but we're also now switching the lens on that energy to a gentle lens that is going to allow us to really kind of experience. So if you have been blocking out with your mind the lessons that were being handed to you in Gemini, hey, great news. You now have an opportunity to feel those lessons instead of think them. Great news, guys. So during this time, be aware of that, but also be aware that that peak potent solar energy is there for you to tap into as well. So we want to avoid the shadow side of Cancer. We want to avoid the withdrawing. We want to avoid the numbing. We want to avoid drama or over emotionality about the feelings. Feeling is how your soul is communicating with you. But when you get into emotion and you start telling yourself stories, that is actually not the communication that the feeling is trying to get to you. So be aware, and when you see yourself moving out of feeling and into that emotional spiral, tap into that solar divine masculine energy that is right there for us at this time. And it'll give you a little fire to balance you back out. So I hope that this was helpful for you. And I, as always, leave comments, questions. You can follow us on Instagram at avalon.rises. We have an email list. We have several exciting events coming up, including, as I mentioned, that max meditation on the new moon, the Cancer new moon, to help you really unpack what your intuition is trying to tell you at this time. So as always, you're not alone. Reach out. We are here for you. Blessed be.